6:01. So time being 6:01, the meeting is being recorded now. I will call the meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission to order. We have a quorum. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people who may gather in one place, this meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public can be found on the Town of Freetown's website, freetownma.gov. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post to the town's website or YouTube channel an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. That being said, just some housekeeping before we go through this. We have two items who have requested a continuance. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes.
So those would be items number 2 and number 3, correct?
Just gonna pull it up the agenda.
Yeah, so 67 Chase Road, and then we have the off Tripaway Road. Both of them are ET Engineering Enterprises who have requested a continuance. When did they ask for a continuance to, Chris?
First meeting in November.
First meeting in November. So, geez, let's look at the calendar here. September, October, November. So today's the 13th, and we meet on the 27th, and then it would be the 11th, then the 25th. Looks like November 8th. Is that correct? All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So to stay on a regular every 2-week schedule, I don't think that's a holiday, November 8th, no. So I will call items number 2 and number 3 back to order. Those are both continued notice of intent public hearings, one for 67 Chase Road. It's for the installation of a solar, commercial solar array. And the other is for off of Chipaway Road in East Freetown. It's another solar array installation. The applicant's engineer has requested a continuance to first meeting in November, which is November 8th. So that being said, I will entertain a motion to continue both of those public hearings to the date of November 8th, 6 o'clock via Zoom.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Motion's being supported. There's no further discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. So motion carries unanimous. Both of those items have been continued.
It looks like
to November 8th.
Keith is joined.
Keith is here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Kevin, I am here. I am at work though.
Keith,
I don't know if you want to do
no, I'm going
Charlie's
to take
thing
item
first.
number. I am going to take that item. So I appreciate you, Keith. I know you're at work right now. I know you had a busy day. So thank you. I hope you got to your dinner. I'm going to move Chairman's prerogative to item number 7. This is of a notice of intent for 53 High Street. The reason why I'm doing that is in case Keith gets called out. We have, if I'm not mistaken, Charlie, is this the one that you were going to recuse yourself from because you are in a butter or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Item number
So
7.
let's, item number 7, yes, this is notice of intent public hearing. So that being said, I will ask that the minutes reflect, and obviously we're on Zoom, but also let the minutes reflect that Commissioner Sullivan is recusing himself from this conversation due to being in a butter to the property. So that being said, this is a new notice of intent public hearing. If we have any interested parties here, the way this works is we allow the applicant or their representative to make a presentation. After that, we will open it up to questions from the public and from the board. I will ask that you politely get my attention or Chris's attention. You can raise your hand if you'd like, or just say, excuse me, at a break, in the conversation, that's fine. For those that would like to follow along with the sets of plans, you can go to the town's website, freetownma.gov, go to Conservation Commission. You will see, and click on that. You will see there's something on the left-hand side, fourth one down. It says Conservation Commission current filings. You can click on that, and you will see that the notice of intent set of plans is close to the bottom. It's the second one from the bottom. It's 53 High Street notice of intent. So you can both look at the notice of intent and the plans. So that being said, are there any other questions before we get started? Okay, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
And I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made and supported. There's no further discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call vote. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Okay, do we have the applicant's representative here with us tonight?
I am here. Darren McHale from Foresight Engineering.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you saying that. I didn't say, if we do get your attention for a question, or if you are going to be speaking, other than board members, if you could just kindly identify yourself for the record. Thank you, Darren. Go ahead.
All right, so Darren McHale from Foresight Engineering here on behalf of Mr. Knowles, proposing to build a single-family dwelling on his property located at 53 High Street. It is a 22-acre lot. Unfortunately for Mr. Knowles, most of the property is wetland, and we do also have the Terry Brook running through it and crossing the road from us. Proposing a small dwelling for his son, a 3-bedroom. We are proposing a fast treatment system that will alleviate any nitrogen loading on such a small upland area surrounded by wetlands. Unfortunately, due to the size of the upland area, in order to make the well setback, I had 2 options to put the well, one in the northwest corner up by the brook and one to the southeast. And by the southeast corner, there used to be a garage where you'll see the 27-foot setback from the proposed dwelling. And there's actually a woods road that runs along the stone wall into the back of the property. So we're proposing the well just down that pre-existing woods road and then a replanting on the way out. I do show another area for replication, but after visiting the site after the rains, I'd probably advise the board to maybe move that planting behind the dwelling and make more of a buffer behind the house rather than disturb another area that's right next to a wetland that's very difficult to get to. I'm very happy to answer any questions. The building will be raised due to the water table, and we're only putting in a half walkout, so it'll be a half basin in the back, because I know it is relatively close to the wetlands. But he's not looking for any backyard. This is a small dwelling for his house, for his son. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Okay, thank you. So I see at the southwest corner, southeast corner.
Southeast.
It's where you're putting the well. Yeah,
correct.
Southeast corner. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that the placement of the well will be in a wetland location, or it's up?
It is a flag. Yeah, no, it is a flagged wetland right there.
It's flagged
We're
wetland.
about,
Yes. Right.
Yeah, we're 50 feet into the wetland, but it is a pre-existing woods road that's there. It is just in the wetland area. Unfortunately, it's just always been a woods road there. That's why I thought that was a better option for the well, rather than we could have put the well in an upland area, but it would have been so close to the wetland and the brook that I didn't feel that it was a good spot to try and get a well truck into.
Okay. And so you're proposing just a temporary disturbance. So you're going to
correct
reseed and replant on your way out.
Correct. And we're going to do some additional plantings on the way out, and then I would recommend that we move the other additional plantings to behind the dwelling rather than over in the northwest corner where I'd shown them, because that area is very difficult to get to now that I've gone out there.
Sure. And that would be the area of the 850 square feet of replication to be seeded in plantings, correct?
Yeah, and that was the 1.5 times, because I feel that's fair enough for the property, and we are asking for some close proximity to the wetland. So
where would you propose us putting that now? That replication?
I would probably I would probably think about putting that right behind the dwelling from where it says 16 foot to 14 foot, right in between those two measurement setbacks. We could easily do a planting right there, and that would delineate that silt fence as the limits of work, and that gives enough room behind the house that someone can walk in and out and get things out of the basement without having to disturb any vegetation.
All right, so you're saying from like wetland flag number 2-8?
Yep, to about 2-10 almost.
Okay. Would you be able to provide us with a set of plans that demonstrates that?
Yep, not a
All
problem.
right. And we have, you have a planting schedule
I do.
of the type of plants that, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm reading it now, so.
Yep. So I'll move those
Uh,
behind, and I'll add some over in the well area too to make that a little heavier.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, are there any abutters to this property or interested parties that have any questions from the public? If so, just identify yourself, please.
Yes, David Wood, 116 Howland Road, direct abutter to the wildlife management area.
Direct abutter to the wildlife management area.
116
Yeah.
Howland Road.
Yeah, we're talking about, so you're in a butter to 53 High Street? Talking about currently.
Negative. I'm late to the meeting. I apologize. I do have a day job
No worries.
No worries.
requires me to work.
No worries.
So
I think
that's
your hearing
okay.
got continued,
No
sir.
worries. Yeah. Well, so which hearing are you here for, sir?
the Cranberry Bog development at the wildlife management area.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be coming up, sir. So just be a little patient. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. So any board members have any questions?
None.
So it's a new, I'm sorry, go ahead. So this is a new construction, so you are meeting the setbacks relative to the Board of Health regulations and the septic system, correct?
Correct. And we're offering up the D-Night system so that we have no impact on the resource area at all, the brook or anything like that. The FAST system is basically puts out drinkable water when it's done.
There you go. We appreciate that, and I'm sure the environment does too. Okay. Questions from the board or the general public or interested parties? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Did you second it, Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion made and supported. No further discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Roll call vote. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chief Mello.
Aye.
And Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, the only outstanding item at this point in time, I think, would be just a new set of plans, Darren, that would show the
new planting,
the new planting schedule to that location that we had discussed earlier, right between wetland flag 2-8 and then 2-10. And then if you were going to put a few more plantings within that area that you're going to temporarily disturb. Yeah. If you could show that. So I'll entertain a motion that we approve the plan. Oh, thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the plans as submitted. Just stand by. Are we outside the Terry Brook Rivers Protection Act?
We are within the 200-foot riparian. The building itself is within the 100-foot, but we are underneath the square footage allowed. So we were allowed 12,000 square feet. I'm holding at 10,000 with the limits of work of disturbance. So we meet all the riverfront requirements.
Do we have that in the narrative, Darren?
It's on the plan. Yeah, it's actually on the plan right in the wetland area. You'll see that it shows in big numbers there.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what are we replicating? Why are we replicating it? And who's benefiting from this?
Sir. I know you came late. Is this the same gentleman speaking? Or
Yes, I am.
Okay, I know you came late to the meeting, so I'll briefly go over the rules again, right? So before you speak, you would kindly get somebody's attention, mine or the clerks. And then before you speak, you'd state your name and your address, okay?
My name is David A.
So-
Wood, 116 Howland Road.
Okay, and then you would wait for the chairman to recognize you before you would ask any questions.
Who is the
okay?
chairman?
I am the chairman, sir.
Okay, sir.
So, you had a question as to what
I have
are we
several
replicating?
Mr. Chairman, can I?
Yes.
I believe this gentleman thinks that we're talking about Howland Road and we're talking about High Street.
Oh, and my phone just died.
And the public hearing is closed now. So
Yeah,
we're-
that's
Right.
all right.
Right,
That's
so
fail.
we're fighting through the Zoom thing, right? So I'm gonna get
No
through this.
problem.
So we're talking about 53 High Street, the construction of a single-family home with a septic system.
Okay,
So part of that, what happens is oftentimes in a project that if there's an intrusion into the wetlands or they need to fill in wetlands, they're required to replicate those wetlands in another area. Now, in this instance, this is a temporary disturbance of a wetland, and they're repairing the wetland in kind on this site. It's a very small amount. And additional, so I don't even know if it rises to the level to have to do replication because you're not filling in. But in this instance, they actually offered to create more wetland behind the structure to offset any other potential impact. So that's what's being offered here.
okay. My question is,
So-
I received a notice from the town regarding the cranberry bog being some
Okay,
kind of,
one more time, sir. That is a public hearing that will be coming up after. We have many things on our agenda tonight. Okay, so there's going to be multiple public hearings.
okay. So why would we close
So-
one hearing and then start another hearing? Aren't they all continuous in one hearing?
No, they are not, sir,
Okay,
because that's the law. That's why I do it that way.
okay.
It's a requirement. In order for me to move on and for us to vote on a relatively simple plan here, we need to go through the process. We open the public hearing, presentation, discussion, questions. If there's no more questions, particularly about this one item, then we close the public hearing. There were no other questions at the time, so we closed this public hearing. You will have your opportunity to ask questions about the project that you are concerned about later on within the meeting, okay?
What is the agenda number for the cranberry bog? That's what I want to know.
Okay. Stand by, please. So it would be item number 6. So if we can finish this public hearing, we'll be already through 3 items, and then we would only have 2 more, and then we get to yours.
Very good, sir. I'll stand by. Thank you.
Thank you. So that being said, if there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to approve the notice of intent with the modification that the replication area will be at the aforementioned between flags 2-8 and 2-10 directly to the east of the house. I'll accept
make
that
mo-
motion.
I'll
make
second it.
Thank you. Motion's made and supported. There's no further discussion on the motion. Roll call vote. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys. Have a good
Charlie,
night.
you rejoin. Thank you. Charlie, you rejoining?
Pardon me. Yes, yeah.
Are you there?
Back.
Excellent. All right. So let the minutes reflect that Commissioner Sullivan is back on the job, so to speak. Okay, so we'll back to the top of the agenda. Request for determination of applicability. This is 78 Cliff Drive. This is a septic system repair, and the site disturbance is within the 100-foot buffer zone to a salt marsh. Do we have the applicant's representative here? And again,
Brad Fitzgerald from SFG Associates Engineer.
hi, Brad, how are you? So
Good,
again,
thanks.
interested parties, I know this is not this part is not a public hearing. It's a request for determination, so it doesn't require the public hearing. But if there's any interested parties here, again, Conservation Commission on our website, freetownma.gov, current conservation filings, and you will see the associated plans there. So, Brad, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an existing one-bedroom home at 78 Cliff Drive. It's got a salt marsh behind it and down on its lower side. It's very high up, but it's out of the flood zone. And right now there's a septic tank and a leaching pit that are behind the house. At the closest point, they're about 37 feet from the salt marsh. We're proposing to reroute the plumbing to come out the side. So septic tank will be about 60 feet from the salt marsh. And then we're going to put in underneath the driveway, we're going to put a row of flow diffusers. And those would be about 70 feet from the edge of the salt marsh. So we're increasing from 37 feet to 60 for the closed in tank and 70 for the leaching area. The existing septic tank is partially under a deck, so we would pump that and fill it. And then the leaching pit will pump that and we will crush it and fill it in. Prior to the start of any of the work, we will install erosion control, which will encompass that area of the existing system. So any dirt from that will be protected with the erosion control, and that'll stay in place. When that's done, they will loam and seed that, and the erosion control will stay in place until the grass is taken and everything is stable. Up top, where the leaching area is going, that's part of the driveway, so they will pave that over. And once again, the erosion control will stay there until any exposed surfaces have stabilized. And that's about it.
And this is in response to a failing or a system that doesn't pass Title V. And,
That's correct.
And right, it looks like right. So it's a tank, but yet it goes to an old beehive pit. Is what it
That's
does.
correct.
Right?
That's correct.
All right. So yeah, those are no good. And I appreciate trying to get it as far away from the marsh that you can. I know the lots are tight down there, especially the ones that are up against the water. So I do appreciate that effort. So does anybody from the board have any questions?
No.
Okay. No. All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion that we issue a negative determination number 3 that the work is in an area in a buffer zone to an area that is subject to protection of the Wetlands Protection Act, but will not dredge, alter, or fill. So the required notice of intent is not required. Excuse me. I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made and supported. No further conversation on the motion or discussion on the motion. Hearing none, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye, but I didn't approve it.
Chris Mather.
But
I'm
that's
sorry?
fine. Oh, go ahead. Never mind. I'm thinking of something else. Go ahead. Aye.
Okay, aye, all right. And Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimous. So Brad, we'll just give us a few days, try to get the paperwork done on that. But in the meantime, if you need a set of plans stamped, or I think you've already applied at the
Yes.
the Board of Health, Brad?
Yeah, that's correct.
All
The
right,
plans are at the Board of Health.
All right, so since it's got an approval tonight, I can go in there tomorrow and I can stamp those plans so we can move forward that way.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're
Have a
welcome,
good evening.
sir. You also, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So we've done number 2 and number 3 have been continued. Okay, so we have items number 4 and number 5. Do we have the applicant here or their representative here on the continued notice of intent for 0 rear Simmons Street in Asona?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, John Connell, SciTech Engineering.
Hi, John, how are you?
Very
All
good.
right,
How are you?
so item number 4, fine, thank you. Item number 4 is a continued notice of intent, public hearing that I will call back to order. This is again for the installation of a solar array on a lot. It's rear Simmons Street in Asona. For those interested parties that may be here, just please keep in mind, we are just the Conservation Commission. So all we deal with is the Wetlands Protection Act. So if you have any questions relative to any other activity on that site, that would be, and I would recommend that you attend the planning board's public hearings where they can address those things for you. So I've called that back to order. So if you would, and again, on our website, you can find the current filings, and this would be 0 Simmons Street rear. And so do we have the peer review engineer here tonight, Chris?
Hi, Kevin. It's Maria from Environmental Partners.
Hear anybody or see anybody?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
I
Hello.
can hear you.
Hi. It's Maria.
Oh, okay. Is that Maria?
Partners. Yep.
Hi, Maria. Can hardly hear you, so I don't know if it's a bad connection. So we may have some questions. We'll see. So we have a set. We're going to be looking at John, the revised plans. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So if you would, sir, please.
Is it okay if I share the screen?
Yes. So, Chris, give him ability to share the screen, please.
Okay, this is,
So
as you
again, if you
mentioned,
could
this,
just for the record, right, John, yeah, John, from just introduce yourself again, please.
yeah, John Connell, SciTech Engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had gone through several iterations, revisions for the going back and forth with environmental partners. They had some comments, and we believe we've addressed all of their technical comments pertaining to drainage, et cetera, on the project. I don't know if you wanted me to just give another brief overview because it's been a little while.
Yeah, if you can just give a brief overview. I mean, this has been going on for some time, and it's been in peer review for some time. So,
Yeah.
if there were anything that was outstanding that you addressed, why don't you start with that, right? That what you've done, if you've made changes in response to our peer review. And so folks that understand out there, typically on some of these projects, we will hire at the applicant's expense a peer review engineering company that goes out and basically reviews the plans for accuracy, and we'll do a lot of our technical review on behalf of the town, but again, at the applicant's expense. No tax dollars are going to this. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, again, it's about a 28-acre parcel, 1.6 megawatt solar array here in 2 parts. We have a gravel drive would be at the end of Simmons Street to access the parcel. As part of that, we have to fill a little bit of wetland in here, and then we have to cross over in this area here. There's an existing access, basically a cart path that comes in and would be widening that. The comments, some of the biggest comments really were work within the 25-foot buffer, and we've pulled that work out to the extent that we can. Obviously, we can't do that where we're filling, but where we do have to fill, we've replicated, and we made some revisions to the replication area per their request. We added another small replication area over here. All of the drainage, there were some comments pertaining to the ground cover that we used for the drainage calculations. All of that has been revised, and we had received a letter from environmental partners to that effect that we've addressed all the technical concerns that they had with our design. So that's a small overview, and hopefully we've answered, again, all environmental partners' questions, and whatever questions you may have, I'd certainly try to answer any of those as well.
Okay, so Maria, again, Maria's from Environmental Partners Group, our peer review outfit, engineering firm. do you have anything to add to that, or is there anything outstanding that you believe would require further attention from the Conservation Commission?
John is correct. They responded to all of our technical comments. The two outstanding items were things that we thought the board might want to include as conditions of approval for this project, which include submission of the stormwater pollution prevention plan prior to land disturbance, and then submission of the illicit discharge compliance statement. That
Prior to construction?
Post construction. Yeah, sorry. Prior to discharge of any stormwater, the post construction BMPs.
Right, so we would need those, and that's typical. Oftentimes there are changes that are made through the public hearing process for planning board, which then requires them to go back and look at that, and the redundancy of having to do it multiple times. So it's a typical condition that we would add to that. So the delineation has been approved. It's all accurate. The wetland replication, you have that. You have the operation maintenance plan, stormwater management system on the plans. You have a construction sequence. I'm just looking for the replication details. You have that on here somewhere?
This is sheet number 5, which shows the schedule of the different types of plants and the symbols that we use, and that's how that area would, or the areas themselves would be planted.
You said sheet number 5.
Yeah, 5 of 7.
There it is. I'm sorry. Gosh
okay.
almighty. Okay. Okay, just to make sure that's there. And obviously it's a sizable replication simply because the requirements. Are you giving, is it what's the ratio that you're providing us on that?
It's a little over 1-to-1. I think the total is, let's see, 43, 40.
Yeah, the total is, well, what you're proposing is 4880.
Yeah, and we've got a little over 5,000, 5,060, it looks like, to be exact, for replication. So just over the 1-to-1 requirement.
So you have 2 replication areas. I see replicate 3, replication area C. And then, yeah, that one is the replication plan detail. All right. So again, EPG has looked at that and reviewed that. So it meets the standard. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions from the general public or interested parties or from the board? No, I know you made some changes, and I know this has gone through a pretty thorough review, multiple iterations, so I'm sure. So, and again, most of the items that people are typically concerned with are relative to the planning board. So if there's no other comments or questions at this time, Maria, again, those are the only 2 outstanding items that we would condition.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Then that being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. I need a second. Motion's been made and supported to close the public hearing.
Storm surge flood watches right now, all the way from South Padre.
Folks, if you're gonna be speaking during the meeting, if you could just kindly mute yourself or just step away from the mic so that we're not picking up your casual conversations. Thank you. Motion's been made and supported. All in favor, roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, that being said, this is a notice of intent. So I would entertain a motion that we approve the plans revision date 8/31/2021. Is that correct, John?
Correct.
All right. Revision date 8/31/2021 as the plan of record with the aforementioned conditions relative to the illicit discharge and the SWIP being provided to the town for review and acceptance prior to issuance of a building permit. I just need somebody make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mostly by mail, as we saw it, at least.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and supported. If there's no further discussion on the motion, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just give us, you're gonna need to stick around for the next one. So give us a few days to get the paperwork together. It may take a little bit longer than a few days, right? I'm working with no clerk, and Chris is helping out as much as he can. So, all right. So next on our agenda, we would have item number 5. This is a continued notice of intent for a public hearing for the installation of solar arrays at 23 and 25 Gurney Road in East Freetown. The applicant is Doug Mola, and the representative is SciTech Engineering. So I will call that a public hearing back to order. The applicant's representative is here. Again, if you are an interested party, Town of Freetown website, Conservation Commission, go to the current filings. You will see it there as listed as 3 through 25 Gurney Road, East Freetown. And we will be looking at the most recent 8/31/21 revised plans. So John, if you would, just talk about the changes that you've made. This is very similar to the prior project. It's gone through some iteration, some back and forth with the review engineers, and I know you've made some changes. I know there was, and this is outside of our purview, but I know there were comments from the planning board that you needed addressed. So if you could just speak to the any of the changes that were done and offered relative to the comments from Environmental Partners Group, please.
Yeah. Once again, John Connell, SciTech
You can
Engineering.
speak, and do you still have the ability to share your screen?
Yeah, I left it up here. I've got the,
Okay.
This is the overall layout here that you'll see for the Gurney project. As you mentioned, it's the same thing. We had gone through a few iterations of comments and revisions, and I think we've gotten to the point again where the last, I think the last few comments were very similar, that we submit the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, prior to construction. And one other question was the fabrication of a drainage plate for the one of the basins where the orifice is very close to the weir. And I've confirmed with one of the fabricators that if the plate is thick enough that won't be a problem. So the contractors will be able to construct that plate. I think those are the two remaining technical review items. Another comment that had come up, as you mentioned, during the planning board was access to the town-owned parcel, which, if you can see the hand here, I'm moving the hand over in here. We had provided a 6-foot, basically a walking access back there, but at one of the planning board hearings, that concern had come up, that the access be provided, in similar fashion, that a vehicle could get back there. We widened that out to 10 feet, and we moved the fence back and rounded that out to provide a radius where a vehicle could make that turn instead of the sharp edges, so a vehicle will be able to follow that fence line and reconnect to the existing cart path that traverses that town of Freetown parcel. Other than that, the plans are very similar to what you've seen in the past. We, much like Simmons, we pulled some of the improvements outside the 25-foot, that no touch / buffer zone. But as a rule, the improvements are very much the same, only scaled back outside that 25-foot zone. Those are basically the changes that were made.
All right, so maybe we can revisit just the concern on the grate. Because yeah, the condition of the SWIP and the illicit discharge and all that material, obviously that's a condition that's going to need to be met prior to construction. But you mentioned something, John, in that contractor believes it can get done out in the field. Well, what happens if they can't do that? Are there practical solutions available should you run into something, or is this just a minor detail?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, there are alternatives. We can change the orifice size. I like to have the orifice at 3 inches. It's a little bit bigger and it's less prone to clogging and would require less maintenance. We can go to a smaller orifice configuration, or we could go to, we can cut into the side of the structure and put have the orifice in the plate as it's currently configured with the 3-inch orifices. We could have the orifices on the side and the weir on front, so that there are multiple options we can use should he not, or they not be able to fabricate it. But you know, I don't envision that will be a problem. But if it does become a problem, we have several for other alternatives to accomplish the same result.
All right, so that's probably going to be something at minimum that we would want our peer review to look at once the field installation is done, so that there can be a sign off that in fact, yes, it was fabricated, yes, it's going to do what it's intended to do, or no, you need to find an alternative to that, right?
Understood. Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody here from the from the general public or interested parties that may have a question on this project? Again, I know that we've been talking about this one for a while. It's gone back and forth. We've had it here, but pretty straightforward filing. And on this one here, John, I've noticed there is no need for any kind of replications, correct? Because I don't believe that there is a wetland crossing, or is there a minor one?
It is a minor one, yes.
Yeah.
The existing building.
I see it. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I see it. I just had to blow up the plan on my computer, that's all.
Yeah, I can go, you can see it as it's right in here as it
relates. Yeah, it's the wetland alteration, replication, and culvert extension. See sheet detail number 2. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it now. John, sometimes I ask questions so that other people can learn along with me, my friend.
Sure. No, that's fine.
So does anybody have any other questions? If not, I'll entertain them. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was just the blow up of that alteration area and replication.
Okay. Yep. Okay, there's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made, support to close the public hearing. There's no further conversation or discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Okay, so again, notice of intent, very similar to the last one, in that the approved plans will be a plan set dated 8/31/21, clearly with the conditions relative to the illicit discharge and SWIP paperwork. prior to construction. Additionally, that the grate structure that is being proposed by the applicant needs to be field inspected by our peer review engineer for its effectiveness. And if it cannot be done in the field, then they will work with the applicant to provide a reasonable solution as been offered tonight with the approval of the Conservation Commission. So I make that motion. I will entertain that motion, excuse me.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and supported. There's no further discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. All right, John, we'll, like I said, we'll follow up with that paperwork, but just give us a little bit of time and we'll get it out to you, okay?
Yeah, yes, sir. I appreciate everything. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, John. You have a good night, sir. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Okay. So next on our agenda would be item number 6. So this is a notice of intent for Millbrook Bogs Restoration Project, Howland Road. The applicant is SLR Consulting, care of Megan B. Raymond. The owner is Mass Wildlife, care of Jason Zimmer. And the representative will be SLR Consulting in Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration. The scope of this project, or the scope of work, this project proposes to restore 115.5 acres of retired cranberry bogs and adjacent upland area, incorporating public access located within the Millbrook Bogs Wildlife Management Area. So again, this is a public hearing, so I will call the public hearing to order. I will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Motion made and supported. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Okay, so do we have the applicants? Again, interested parties? It sounds like we may have a few people here that are interested in this project. If you're just joining the meeting, this is a public hearing. We allow the applicant to make a presentation relative to their project. After that, we will open it up to questions, comments. All questions and comments should be directed through the chair, but will be answered accordingly by the applicant or their representative. Unless it is a procedural question, then the board may answer that. Kindly get our attention just by saying excuse me, or if you are on video, you can raise your hand and I will be notified of that. If you would like to follow along, you can follow along on your computer screen through the screen sharing, or if you want, you can go to our website, freetownma.gov. You can go to the Conservation Commission section, look at current Conservation Commission filings, and you will see the application and notice of intent, which is rather lengthy for this project. And it also is accompanied by the set of plans. So again, folks, this may be a bit of a lengthy presentation, so I would just ask everybody's patience, allow the applicant to make their presentation, and then I can rest assured everyone here that should you have a question, I will allow it to be asked, and I cannot guarantee that you will get the answer that you're looking for, or even the answer tonight. But that's typically how we do it. I would just ask, try not to be repetitive. If the question's been asked and answered, like I said, well, board members and the general public may not like the answer sometimes. If that is the answer, then that's the information that we go with when we make our decision. So that being said, do we have the applicant's representative here? And if so, on your side, just kindly introduce yourself when speaking for the record and who you do represent.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Alex Hackman. I'm with the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration, and I'm representing the landowner, Mass Wildlife, and the project team. And I'm excited to talk to you all tonight. I plan on staying on as long as we need to answer questions. I hope to be delivering a good news story to neighbors tonight. We're not talking about development. We're talking about trying to improve the health of the wetlands and stream here for public use and enjoyment. So I hope to deliver some good news. I've got a presentation for everybody with lots of maps and pictures, and it's going to be fun and not dry. So if it suits you, Mr. Commissioner, and the commissioners, I will launch into that.
That's fine. Please do.
Okie dokie. I'm going to try to share my screen and get a slide deck going. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to try to put this in slideshow mode so it looks better, and you guys can tell me if it works. Here we go. Did everyone see this in slideshow mode? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, guys. So, like I said, I'm with the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration. Our project engineer is SLR International. I believe Aidan Barry from that firm is on tonight, but I'm going to be prepared to answer your questions today. And with that, let's get rolling. By the way, my email address is at the bottom here. I'm going to flash that at the very end too for any members of the public that want to take that at the end and follow up with me. This doesn't have to be a one-time conversation tonight. Happy to have as many follow-up conversations as is helpful. I'm also representing a number of other partners tonight. Just want to point out, we're working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Narragansett Bay Estuaries Project, Ducks Limited, Save the Bay, and others. With that, let's get into it. Here's the overview. I'm going to get into a lot of detail, but here's the big picture. Right now, the site's an abandoned, former commercial cranberry farm. The land is permanently protected from development forever. It is now a state-owned wildlife management area for public use and enjoyment and wildlife. The existing conditions on the site are degraded. And I'm going to talk a lot about what that means tonight for the commission and members of the public. Essentially, from almost 100 years of agriculture, the historical wetland conditions on site are changed for the worse. What we propose with this project is a future conditions, which is going to be a mosaic of healthy wetlands and streams running through this site with grassland around the edge, transition into the protected forest for public use and enjoyment. And we're going to do that by using coordinated restoration actions, ecological restoration actions that we've used successfully at 6 other sites already in the region. And we have 15 more of these kind of projects in process. So I'm going to show you some pictures of what this will look like from other projects. We spent 10 years getting to know the site, done detailed engineering and modeling to come up with our plan. I'll cover that. And we started the permitting coordination process. We're through MEPA and we're filing the other permits. So there are other opportunities for public comment and input. And here we are for the local Wetland Protection Act permit. So the outline of our talk is this. I'm going to give a quick introduction, zoom out just for context so you guys know what the heck this is all about. We're doing a lot of this work in the region. And then we're going to drill down onto the project site, talk nuts and bolts, and then leave time at the end for questions and answer. This picture in the lower right-hand corner, by the way, is the first cranberry bog wetland restoration project we completed. That's what it looked like 8 years after we were done. So again, I work for the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration. Our mission is to protect and restore rivers and wetlands of the Commonwealth for the benefit of people, fish, and wildlife. We're action-oriented, so we do projects. And I'm a project manager, and we're partnership-based. We work with a lot of partners to try to get these things done. These are what some of our projects look like. I lead for that division a program dedicated to working on retiring cranberry farmland, trying to do conservation and wetland restoration on these sites. So folks can go to our website and take a look. Got some information up there, but I'll cover some background here. This is what the first project looked like that we ever did. We started this back in 2005. This is in Plymouth, by the way. Typical cranberry farm. Here's upper right-hand corner is what it looked like last year farming. And then that lower right-hand corner is, I want you guys I'm going to show a lot of pictures like this because this is why we're doing this project here and on other sites, is because once farming stops, what we often see is not just a return to a healthy wetland, but something else because of the farming that's happened for decades and decades, usually a transition to pine trees or other dry types of vegetation. And we'll talk about that. So this is this first project. It's in Plymouth. We started it in 2010. This is what it looked like during construction. And then we're going to talk tonight about edge-to-edge disturbance on the site and why we're doing it. But this is what it looked like during the job. A lot of disturbance on the ground, a lot of breaking up the cranberry mat, a lot of adding logs and stuff for habitat, some planting. So this is what it looked like during the job. That's what it looked like just a couple months later. All those plants, except for the ones in tubes, which there's a couple ones out there, but all that green stuff coming up is just the seed that was underground. So that's just a few months later. And then really quickly turned into something that looks like this. And this picture is 7 years later, but this is what it looked like just a couple of years after that. And then you walk upstream here and it looks something like that. Really nice, healthy wetland. This is what we're after with these projects. Like I said, since then, we've completed 6 others all over the region, and then we got 15 others in progress that my program's working on with partners. Gotten some good press about these, been in the Times, got a nice story on WBR. If anyone wants some more audio on these projects, that's a good one to look up. But that's allowed us over the last couple of years to raise some money to do this across the region, to pay farmers to protect their land and then to build these projects for public use and benefit. Since that time, we've also made an effort to learn about the outcomes of these projects. We just published this report last year. You guys, anyone can get it online for free. Essentially what we did is we said, let's take a look at all the projects we've done in the last decade and try to figure out, did they work? Were they good for nature? Were they good for communities? And these are some of the things we found. Promotes fish and wildlife migration, builds healthy soils, improves water quality, very much increases the plant diversity. So we make healthier wetlands on these sites. So these are all good findings. We found that the actions I'm going to talk to you about do good on these old farm sites. That's good here because there are a lot of farms in the region, as folks know. The site we're talking about tonight's over here on the western edge, but this is the universe of cranberry farms in Massachusetts. So lots and lots of bogs and lots of associated uplands. Here's what's happening in the region. Why we're doing this at the state level is a lot of these farms are retiring right now for economic reasons. Lots of out-of-state competition, falling prices, an older generation of farmer, kids don't want to take it over. And this is the prediction. Almost 5,000 acres may retire in the next decade. This comes from a paper that I cited here at the bottom that came out a couple years ago. This is what we're seeing from some of these retiring farms. Are some outcomes like this, either gravel mining or solar arrays or housing. You know, I work for a division that promotes wetland and stream protection restoration. So these aren't great outcomes environmentally. They're less desirable, I think. This is another outcome that we're seeing. And I think some of the neighbors on the call may relate to a picture like this. When we see many farms in the region become abandoned, what happens, as I said in that first picture, is because of the cumulative effects, they dry out. You start to get pine trees moving in or other trees. But you also keep the water in the ditches. So these can turn into mosquito hazards. We'll talk more about that. But this is a degraded wetland. The only place there's a wetland in this area right here is the ditch. This has implications for water quality, fish and wildlife habitat, and more. So this is not a good outcome as far as someone like me is concerned. And why does that happen? This is the picture on the left I want to burn into everyone's mind. This is what the big problem is. This is a cross section, this is a test pit on a project site we did in Plymouth. This is my friend Nick in the pit here. We're doing soil sampling. That black layer where my cursor is, that's the native wetland soil. So back in 1850 or so at that site, that's what the ground surface was, wet, black, wetland. 100 years of farming. Every few years in cranberry farming, you put a few inches of sand on a site. After 100 years, you get 1, 2, 3 feet of highly compacted sand on top of the native wetland soil. Whatever is growing down here in the wet black soil does not grow up here on the dry sandy soil. So that separation from the groundwater table and that nice wetland soil is why we see that transition away from wetlands into more upland areas. And that's why we're doing the restoration work. That's the biggest thing right there. Other things that happen in cranberry farming, physical simplification, whatever was there before for a stream gets ditched, straightened, narrowed, everything simplified, flattened, water control structures, dams, and so forth. These are the things we're trying to address through all of these projects. Okay. The message I want to deliver to the commission and the audience tonight is that restoration can be used to repair this past damaged land and set up course for a healthier future. We start with a definition. We use the definition from the Society for Ecological Restoration. I'm just flashing it for folks to see. We ground our work in science. This is a great definition. We could spend an hour talking about it. I'm obviously not going to do that. But assisting in recovery, this is what we want to do. We want to assist in recovery of the land that's been degraded. So the question is, how do we assist in recovery? That's what we're going to talk about. We ground it in science. There's this way of thinking about stream and wetland restoration called process-based restoration, comes out of the Northwest. We've adopted it for work in Massachusetts. Basically, it says, you got to care about the key processes, the engine of nature on a particular site, and then figure out what's wrong and fix the engine. And for these kind of sites, it's the movement and storage of water. That's really the engine if you want a healthy stream or wetland. And so I'm going to talk to you more about the movement and storage of water on this site and how we're going to fix how that's been altered over the last 100 or so years. Okay, so this is what some of our actions look like. Very simple actions that help us repair the movement and storage of water. I showed you that picture of that dense cranberry mat. What that does is it inhibits the ability of water to be stored in that top area. It's ditched, so water runs out. It becomes dry. Springs can't come to the surface, and plants can't grow because that mat is so thick and heavy. So we break it up. We do other things like fill ditches to eliminate mosquito hazards and help this top layer become slightly moister. And we basically remove the farm plumbing system. All those water control structures and culverts and dams, they come out. So fish and wildlife can move around freely. So this is really one of the fundamental actions, is simply breaking apart the cranberry mat that's abandoned. And at this site in Tidmarsh, this is the Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary back in 2015. 10 days after we did that, it looked like that. So if we do that kind of stuff right, we get water expressing on the surface. And then very quickly, once the next growing season happens, this whole area then becomes wetland plants. Wetland plants take up the water, and then you've got a field of wetland plants instead of a field of pine trees or dry soil. Okay, with that, I'm going to transition to the site at issue tonight. Before I move on to that, Mr. Chairman or commissioners, would you like to ask any questions of that context I offered, or should I just get into the meat of the site tonight?
I think you can continue. Again, this is Chairman Kevin Demarais. So you
Okay.
can continue on. I'm going to say this before we go too much. This is obviously a big project, right? And obviously you're doing good work. There's no getting around that. But I think there's a few board members who may be unfamiliar with the site relative to boots on the ground. Some of us who haven't been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And so what I anticipate going to happen is that you're going to be able to make your presentation. We will try to schedule up some sort of site walk.
Perfect.
It will also allow the general public to consume this information after the meeting, now that they know where it is and what this is about. It also will allow them to reach out to you should they have any questions that you can, potentially address at the next meeting. So for those interested parties, again, that's typical of how we do things on projects like this. This is the second one that I've been involved with, not necessarily on the cranberry bog side, but we had a dam removal project in a sonnet that because they did that, restored it through many grants and all, and returned the wildlife or restored the wildlife a little bit better around there and removed a flooding hazard and mitigated that. So it can be successfully done here in town and with very good results. If anybody wants to drive down Narrows Road and take a look at the new causeway that was built, and then take a look to the south and see what was an old bleachery pond with an old bleachery that burned down many moons ago. The old dam has been removed. It's a free-flowing waterway that herring utilize, river otter, mink, and so it's turned it into a little unique habitat over there. So we are, I think, to a certain degree, we are familiar with work that is similar to what you're proposing.
Okay.
But I would imagine that we're going to still want to go out there and look at it and do that.
That sounds great. I'd be delighted, of course. And if even, I'll take it even one step further. If we want to go see a site that's completed even recently in another town, I'm happy to do that too. So with that,
So
Mr. Chairman,
I would,
yep,
yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I was going to just ask if you have a name of a site so the general public, if it is open to the public for to see, so do you have a specific site that you were thinking of?
Yeah, I sure do. There are a couple. I'll drop them right in the chat here so people can grab them. I'm not going to have ability to send a link or anything, but the Eel River Headwaters
No, that's fine.
Restoration site in Plymouth is sorry, I'm typing fast and might apologize. It's on Boot Pond Road and Long Pond Road, managed by the town of Plymouth. That's a great site to see. Nice public parking area to walk right in, maintain trails, kind of like I expect what the outcome would look like here. There's also the Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary. That's in a Mass Audubon site in Plymouth. Folks can just, I'm hoping folks can just find this just on the web. I can obviously provide links. There's also the Kuna, if you're down in the Cape, there's the Coonamessett River site, which in Falmouth, we're just wrapping up Childs River in Falmouth. So let's start with those two. Those are probably the ones I take you to. They're the ones that show, once construction is done, what it looks like. So we can also, I can provide a more formal list to the commission and the public as you wish, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's get into the site here. I'm going to show some maps and photos, and we're going to drill down into what's going to go happen on the site. So this is a picture of a couple of years ago, first time I saw the site. Had been abandoned for many years. This is what it looks like more recently. I was out there during the drought, summertime, pretty low flow, and trees are starting to come in here. So we're starting to lose that open vista view, water control structures, and so the site's changing. I think that's the biggest thing for everyone to realize right now is these sites, they change all the time. Nothing is static in nature. If you're farming, you keep it looking the same for a lot of effort. But once you stop farming, nature takes over and you get plant succession. And the plants just respond to the soil, the water, and so forth. So if it's dry, it turns into a forest. If it's wet, it stays a wetland. Mr. Mello, are you on the commission? Do you want to ask a question? Or Mr. Chairman, are you calling on people? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I hit the button by accident.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's keep going then.
All right.
Here's where the site's located. You can almost see it from outer space. It's a big site. Let's zoom in a little bit. Oh, we're on the northern edge of the bioreserve. This is why we're also really psyched about this site. With all this protected land to the south, this is just such a wonderful patch of undeveloped land for wildlife, fish and wildlife. Really special place in the entire region. So the ability to work on the northern edge of this is really an important part of this project. Let's zoom in a little bit. Here's the property itself. The red is the property boundary, at least as we understand it. And then the yellow is where we hope to do our actions. So Mass Wildlife also owns this swamp over here, and DCR owns this forested area over here. So there's trails that come into this site as well. We're just drilling in a little bit now. I'm just showing that the stream as it runs through it today is class 5 impaired by the state, meaning the stream is not designated to be in very good condition. And I'll show you some of the reasons why. We're not in an area of mapped habitat. There are no vernal pools. There's no outstanding resource water. You know, it's not surprising. The area is degraded right now. Now, some of this area around it is really nice, and I'm hopeful that once this area is restored and this whole corridor connects, that this will be a place for endangered species habitat in the future. Here's some historical photos or maps, excuse me. This is an image from 1918 that shows the site before the farm. You can see the stream coming through here. And I'm leaving this up on the left so you can see the contemporary layout versus the old layout. And you can see I left the boundaries up here. So stream comes in from the south, Millbrook, like it does today. And there's a band of wetlands in there, as you can see. Stream comes in from the side. You know, we think something trickles in like that over here. But that's the historical layout. By 1943, the bog had pretty much been built. Now, we don't know the exact date the bog was built, but we think it was about 1930. So I'm using about 70, 90 years of farming on the site as my measure for impact. But by 1943, it looks like it pretty much does today, with some differences. There are a number of differences, canals, some uplands cut out and so forth, but generally the same. Here's the timeline for the project. Like I said, we think about farming on the site for, I guess that's about 80 years. Farming stopped in 2012 when the US Department of Agriculture paid the owner to permanently protect the land for healthy wetlands, fish and wildlife. So it's a permanent conservation easement. The land is permanently protected from development by that action. Site was then bought by the state, Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, my sister division in Department of Fish and Game, to create a wildlife management area. There's a little parking lot off Howland Road, as some of the neighbors, all the neighbors here I'm sure know, which we're going to fix up a little bit for the project. 2018, my office took it on as a formal state project. We've done some fundraising. We secured $1 million grant from the US Fish and Wildlife Service to help do this project. And then we've been working hard on the assessment and engineering of this, and we're into permitting now. So here's some of the stuff we've looked at to get to know the site. Obviously gotten a very detailed inventory of all the, I'm going to call it the plumbing system on the site. There's a lot of canals and water control structures. Farmer had to push water around this site, very significant, complicated ways to farm. So we had to get a handle on that. Done a lot of survey work to get elevations right. Done downward looking radar. That's what this box is. This is me looking silly in the wintertime. That downward looking radar helped us see the old wetland underneath these soils and the peat. Had a bunch of wells in the site to look at the groundwater levels, measured the stream and the discharge during the course of many seasons. Done borings for the small bridge we want to put in place. Flew a drone to do enhance our understanding of the site and the elevations. Surveyed for vegetation. Been out there with mosquito control. Done a series of designs and done modeling so we can understand how kind of moist the site will be after what we're proposing. And then we're presenting to you our engineering design plan set that's in the packet tonight. Here's the existing conditions. This is the site today. I mentioned already this, I'm just calling it a plumbing system just to speak in plain language about it. It's all the way that water's pushed around. So it's really detailed. There's also a bypass canal, runs up along the eastern side here. And there's a bypass canal that runs along the western side. There's a sand fill layer over the whole site, about 1 foot mostly, but there are some deeper areas. So that's that area of sand over the native soil that I showed you that picture of. Channel's degraded, farmer dredged it, kicked the spoils up on the bank. So it's lower than it should be. It's separated from the floodplain. Plants are simplified, got a lot of poison ivy out there, starting to grow some trees. And then there's this dam, this dike 8-6 here on the southern end of the site. Water, by the way, flows south to north. So there's this big L-shaped dam down here at the south. During farming, if you look back in time, you can see that floods this whole area to the south. Okay, that has effectively severely degraded the old wetland that was there. It's basically turned into a pond and it's not let it recover. So we'll talk more about that. And then this area over here is disturbed too. This upland area to the west. Folks can correct me on this call, but I believe that was almost going to become a housing development before the land protection action. I don't know the whole story, but
That's
I'd like to learn
correct.
it.
Actually proposed, there was proposed on the west side, that was a standalone subdivision that was proposed. And I can't remember, it was quite some time ago, so I can't remember how far we got through permitting. But additionally, I believe there was a proposal to extend the Cranberry Drive neighborhood, one of the roads off of that.
Okay.
So on both sides, there was proposed residential subdivision.
That makes sense, Mr. Chairman. There's like a perk test riser out here, so I can see the evidence of that. So those that conservation easement in the state buying it, prevented that development, and that's never going to change for folks on the call to know. This is permanently protected public open space. All right, so let me move on. So here's what it looks like today. These are these dikes that span the valley. These are part of the Fleming system. These are basically dams that span the entire valley. These are water control structures. These are basically used like plugs in a bathtub to flood for harvesting back in times of farming. So what the channel looks like, you can see where it was dredged. The farmer kind of put, I'm guessing, put the spoils right here up on the bank. Makes sense, right? Dig it out, flip it on the bank. And then here's the area to the west that was almost a division. So the site's degraded. So here's what we want to do. Two-part project. We want to do active wetland restoration within the former cranberry farm. And then we want to allow passive restoration of the wetlands outside the cranberry farm. So within the wetland, within the old cranberry farm, it's this package of actions. We're going to get in there with a machine, break apart the soils and cranberry mat. Not unlike that photo I showed you. We have to break apart that dense layer to uncompact the soil, let water wick through it, and let the seed and the wetland seed that's in there emerge again. We're going to fill all the ditches. So any of the mosquito habitat that's developing right now, we're going to fill. That also helps make a healthier wetland. We're going to fill those bypass canals that some neighbors may notice are filling with Phragmites and invasive species. By filling the bypass canals, that lets us put the water back into the site and restore the wetland itself. Can't have water going around the site if we want to make a healthy wetland in the site. Very simple. I'm going to pull all the water control structures. I'm going to remove many of those earthen dikes. We're going to use the existing agricultural ponds that are out there and just naturalize them. We're going to soften the edges. We're going to drop trees in them for turtle basking habitat, but there's no need to get rid of those. We're just going to keep them because they're already nice features. Around the whole edge of the site, bullet F here, we're going to smooth the edges. Right now, there's a really stark, steep transition. And if you walk too close, especially on the northern side, you can topple in. It's pretty steep drop off there. So we're gonna smooth the whole thing. So instead of like a 1-to-1 slope, it's going to be like a 5-to-1 or a 10-to-1 slope. The reason we're doing that from a restoration perspective is so wildlife can move in and out from the forest into the wetlands. Turtles, for example, that spend part of the season in the forest can now more easily come down into that wetland. And for people like me that are walking out there, I won't fall into the site and get hurt. We're going to remove some sand. We're going to install wood for habitat. You're going to see stumps out there for things like salamanders to hide under, just giving the site some roughness for critters. We're going to do a little bit of seeding and planting, but not much. It's just we're going to rely on that native seed just to come back. And then we're going to leave a pathway system in place and reduce the maintenance burden for the owner moving forward. And I'll talk about that. Then outside the cranberry farm, remember, we're doing all the work in the cranberry farm, but outside the cranberry farm, we expect that swamp that's been flooded by that dam to have a chance to come back, because that standing water that's caused by those dams is going to drop. So you're not going to see all that standing water out there. And that's going to give that wetland and area, the swamp, a chance to come back over time on its own. We're not going to do anything there except give it time. We have a detailed project plan set. Looks something like this. Sorry, it's so detailed. I know we provide a lot of information, but that's how we do these projects. We want to be very careful about what we're doing. We're not going to change the stream channel, the alignment at all. It's going to flow through it like it is right now. We're just simply going to add some roughness to it. We're going to put a lot of wood in the channel and some rock, try to slow water moving through the site. Okay, so instead of a little narrow ribbon of water that disappears in a dry summer, hopefully you're going to see standing water, moving water in that channel all the time, and you're going to see it come out and talk to the floodplain a little bit. As I mentioned, this is really aimed at the commission. This project is probably unlike anything that comes before you. We're talking about disturbing the whole site. The entire footprint of the old Cranberry Farm is going to be disturbed. And from where I sit as a restoration ecologist, this is the mantra we use. It's disturbance for rejuvenation. The site's impaired. It's turning into a forest. It's losing its wetland characteristics. If we don't get in there, fill the ditches, bust up the thick, heavy mat, it's going to keep going in that direction. But if we get in there and do this action, it gives it a chance to rejuvenate and take a different path toward a healthier wetland for the future. These are temporary, intentional impacts to the entire Cranberry Farm. But it's going to result in approximately no net changes. In fact, it's going to leave the place much healthier than it is today. A net increase in the the capacity of the resource area. Okay. So I just want to give 3 pictures, then I'm going to be done. This is what intentional disturbance looks like. This is the Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary. This is the Mass Audubon site. This is right before earthwork. And there's definitely some wetland plants in here, a little broom grass, but it's pretty much dry cranberry vines. Here's what it looked like right after the machines left. Again, all we did is just break up the mat, plug the ditches. And then that's what it looked like. Then just a few months later, almost a complete coverage with native wetland plants that just in the seed. So for people on the call today, this is what I would expect you'll see out there. There will be a time when it's going to look like that, but then it's going to very quickly transition to looking something like that. And this is what we're after here: healthy wetlands that are full of wildlife, that are it's enjoyable to walk around, that you can go hunting here, and it's really a community asset. That's our goal. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. I appreciate your patience letting me go through all that. I'm going to leave. This is my email address. So anyone that wants to get in touch with me for more discussion, please do. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and answer questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So just a couple of thoughts, right? This is commendable what you want to do here, obviously, you know, as a member of the Conservation Commission for a long time now. To see this type of stuff happening during my tenure, that's great. I do appreciate that. So I guess I would have a few, not to get into the technical questions relative to your means and methods, obviously tried and true, right? The amount of review, the multiple agencies, the partnerships involved, right? This isn't one person sitting in the back of the room, you know, throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. These are proven methods, and obviously the proof is in the pudding, and I would invite folks to go and look at some of these others. I know I'm going to take a ride. So I guess one of the questions I have is, are we going to be expanding, excuse me, sir. Are we going to be expanding the footprint of the wetlands to encompass the entire property, or are they going to stay basically within the footprint of the existing cranberry bonds? And the reason why I ask is obviously we may, oh, I shouldn't say obviously, but there may be a concern that, hey, you start moving wetlands closer to my property, that in some ways it can be looked at as some sort of de facto taking, that now you've eliminated my use of the property. So was there any consideration given to just protecting the property of the owners and the abutters, existing ones? Like clearly there's some folks up on the road that's the only place I think where there's houses that may be Cranberry Drive could have some, but the cranberry bogs are already wetlands. So if you're staying within that footprint, then nobody, in my opinion, would have any kind of issue. But if you're presenting that you're going to do the entirety of the lot or more than what's existing, I would just ask that we be conscientious of the fact that with wetlands comes setbacks, comes increased filings, and maybe some unintended consequences.
Right, Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. So let me be very clear. The wetland area is not going to expand past the farm footprint right now. And as folks, neighbors on the call know, it's kind of submerged, like it's kind of sunken. There's a berm that goes around the whole outside.
Right.
It's down. Like it's so that's it. There's no expansion out of that because you'd have to come up.
Yep.
And we're down. We're down where the farm is. Now, the related thing is about flooding. Now, if folks in this call might be concerned that we're going to make flooding worse, and I want to be very clear about this. This is absolutely not going to make flooding worse. For those of you that were there when the site was farmed and it was flooded, we're never going to do anything like that, right? They're never going to be, the water control structures aren't going to be plugged. The site isn't going to be flooded. The water is not going to come up above the ground surface. Our goal is to keep water right below the ground surface. If the water is within a foot of the ground surface, then the wetland plants can reach down and tap into it, and you get that nice field of wetland plants. That's what we want. So you're going to see surface water in the stream. You're going to see a couple areas of small ponds, but in no way the water is level. Nowhere across the site is coming up above the ground surface today at all. And we're not changing the outlet. So the site continues to drain through where it does right now, except the triple barrel culvert is going to be a nice open bridge. So water's not going to back up there, and it's going to keep going under Howland Road. So we've done a lot of hydrologic modeling to look at this. So I can have a lot of detail to talk about this. We've looked at the groundwater levels. This is the biggest thing that I want to, there's no chance of making the flooding worse than it was in the farm. We hope to make the soil a little moister, but we're not talking about creating any kind of flooding issue there whatsoever.
So no, you said you're going to be changing out a drainage structure, right? The culvert, if you will. All the drainage control structures are going to be removed, right? Anything that would have held water back to exacerbate flooding, which when we had the floods in 2010, we found that in the future, should it happen again, we need to have a more coordinated effort, I think, with cranberry growers and farmers that have water control structures. Nobody ever thought we'd see water like we did that time. So that's good to hear that there's not going to be a flooding problem, and this is going to, if anything, help mitigate the potential there. Just wondering aloud, and I think I know the answer, but oftentimes I will ask questions so that people can get the answers. This, to a certain degree, is going to help with groundwater quality, quantity, to a certain degree. Is that a correct assumption?
So healthy wetlands have the ability to remove nitrogen, for example. Wetland plants suck up nitrogen and actually permanently remove it, off-gases it. And so that's been one of the findings from other sites is improved water quality. In terms of it being a floodplain, if we do get water that comes up and it does spill out during those big storm events, then you also drop out sediment and phosphorus that might be coming in from upstream. But I think in general, the story with healthy wetlands is you get better water quality from healthy wetlands. The plants go to work and clean the water.
It's their job. It's what they do. It's, salt marshes, the same thing, to a certain degree. And yeah, a healthy wetland is a great water filtration system. Simply put, I think. Okay. Does anybody from the public have any questions? If you do, just kindly raise your hand or just say, excuse me, state your name and address for the record, and feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, hello. This is Vincent Medeiros.
Hey, Vincent.
How are you, sir?
12 Cranberry Drive. Just had a few questions. I guess the first one would be, you're talking about knocking down the edges of the entire perimeter of the cranberry bog. I live on Cranberry Drive, and I was just curious if that's gonna make flooding or erosion, expand. Because I mean, I do live
Mhm.
about, I would say maybe 400 feet from this, cranberry bog. That's my backyard. So I was just curious about that.
Yep, that's a great question, Vincent. So when I say soften the edges, right now it's kind of like this. It's a stark, drops down to the farm surface, right? All I'm talking about is just kind of angling that back. And it's really just so, like I said, so critters come in and out. Now, elevation's not changing at the bottom, elevation's not changing at the top. It's just giving it more of a mellow kind of ramp, right?
So
and you're not going to see standing water over there, and you're not going to see any erosive force to like jet out toward your, it's all going in the brook, right? This is a valley, so water's flowing along the stream toward the outlet at Howland Road, not toward, there's no flow going your way at all.
Right. I was just concerned because, I'm right there. So when we do get a lot of rain, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the fire road that runs up parallel with Cranberry.
Yep.
There is a lot of water that rushes down that, that road. So I don't know if that's going to make it better or worse or whatever.
So Vin, thanks for raising that. So there are a couple places that we know about where DC already owns the forest up to the east. There are a couple places where there's a wetland in that forest that comes into the cranberry bog and hits that farm road. And we think that's causes a little bit of local backed up water there. We're actually kind of perforating that road and putting some rock in. So we're calling it a ford. So water from the woods can come out and move toward the center of the valley, toward the channel. So any water that backs up kind of coming out of the forest is going to come through toward the stream. I probably have to meet you out there and see in particular if there are other areas of standing water that I don't know about that you want to show me.
Well, I on the side, I believe that same side of the bog that you were talking about, there is a huge kind of retention pond.
Yes.
So I'm right on the other side of that.
Okay.
And go ahead.
No, I mean, I know the stream that comes into that. I've been there. We've mapped that there's a little tributary that comes in. There's a little wetland behind that comes in.
It's a constant stream that always, no matter how dry it is, it's always running. So
that's going to keep going out of it. There's a pipe that goes underneath the farm road there. And right now, at least, we're just going to unplug that pipe and let that water flow right out into the farm and let it find its way, just kind of find its way toward the low spot, which is the stream channel in the center.
Okay. And then my last question is, what do you guys do with the wildlife that's already on the premises? I mean, that same pond that I was just talking about, I mean, there's a family of otters that live in that right now. And then you go rip it apart and then you basically destroy their habitat. Well, not destroy, but definitely inhibit what they're doing there.
Vincent, you're talking about something that's the part of my job that is probably the hardest for me, because I know when we go in and do this disturbance, it's going to cause some problems for the local wildlife. There's just no way around it, right?
Yeah, I mean, at any time I could go back there and count 20 deer that are living
awesome.
back there.
So the things that we try to do are work at certain time of year. So if there are any species out there or fish that would have what's called a time of year restriction. Or maybe there's a sensitive time when the turtles are burrowing. We just try to be sensitive to that kind of stuff. And then we kind of move slowly. We'll work in one spot in a concentrated way, and we'll be done, and then we'll move. So if you're out there, if you're a deer, for example, you're know where the machines are, right? We're not going willy-nilly over the place. We're going to move around, hope things can migrate, and things that can't migrate, like that have a harder time migrating, like frogs in ditches or things like that. I mean, the best case scenario would be to assemble an army of volunteers and nets and go out and clear. And I would be right there too, to clear the ditches of any frogs or turtles that are in there before we have to fill them. And that's the kind of thing that would be my ideal situation.
Yeah, because I mean, like I've had just like box turtles burrowing in my backyard, and
awesome.
I was pretty sure that they're an endangered species, so you just stay away from them. And then it's like, okay, stay away from them, but let's go bring a bunch of 30-ton excavators back there and rip it apart.
Yeah, I think doing sweeps, like I said, trying to work in small places and then doing sweeps in those areas first,
Yep.
it would be the ideal thing to do. The whole project is intended to be a lift for local wildlife. And so the last thing that we want to do is hurt the local wildlife. That said, with the disturbance we're doing, I know, it's unavoidable. It's going to be, and like I said, it's this is
No,
the thing that
I
keeps
get
me
it.
up
You have
at
to
night.
break some eggs to make an omelet. I was just,
Yeah,
I didn't know if
exactly.
there were any kind of, if you go back there and like say that those rivers are, I mean, I've seen 3 river otters just, swimming around in that all,
Oh, great.
doing their thing. And then it's like, okay, well, you guys are all done. We're ripping this apart. And now they can't mate,
Yeah.
they can't do all that stuff. So that's
Totally.
that was my concern.
Vincent, is it in that pond on the eastern side, the big long one, kind of by your house?
Yes.
Oh, good. We're not touched. Just so you know, we're not touching that pond.
Oh,
We're
you
just
all
gonna
leaving that intact?
Yep,
You're just
we're
gonna knock down the edge.
Yep, and I hope to drop some trees in it so turtles
Yep.
can go out and sun on those. And
Yep.
we're not going to touch that concrete pad that's right there. We
Yep.
met a young
Yeah,
lady
that
in
was
the
an old
neighborhood.
pump house.
There's a young lady we met in the neighborhood one day doing yoga out there, and
Oh,
we've
geez.
seen a bunch of people sitting right there, and so
Yep.
we're leaving that because it's already
Yep.
being used for a good purpose. So we'll leave that in
Yep.
place too.
Okay. Well, that was my main questions. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Good questions.
Thank you, Vincent. All right, does anybody else have any questions?
Hi, yeah, Chris Dudley, 4 Ken Street.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, so I love the idea of doing this. The images look beautiful, and I actually grew up in Wetlands. It looks familiar. I lived in West Bridgewater, Cowlisa Brook. We use this bog a lot, my kids and I, as a safe place to go walking and to see wildlife, just like Vincent had mentioned, seeing deer and otter and everything back there. My kids love going back there.
Great.
We try to go back there as much as we can. My only concern is, part of this project, are we going to maintain the ability to have like comfortable walks in the area? Because like if growing up on Cowlisa Brook, I'd have to put on wellies to go for a walk because it was so marshy and just not pleasant to walk around. And I fear that we're going to lose that part of that we love about the bog that's there.
I hear you loud and clear, Chris. Some of the dikes, the earthen berms, we got to remove to fix the wetland. Like that southern one, that perimeter one. And I know that one's beautiful. I mean, when I go out there and I see the ocean of stumps, and that's just a special place. But that's got to go. That's got to go. That's backing up that water. That's making mosquito habitat. That's drowning. That's old swamp. We got to get rid of that and let that water come into the site. So that's an example of one that's got to go. We're leaving hiking trails so you can go all the way, basically all the way around. Actually, when I pull up, let me go back to a map and I'll show you what's going to be there.
Yeah, that's my main concern, that you can still use it for, and enjoy its beauty without having to make, accommodations.
Absolutely.
Like wearing waders or something.
Nope, you're going to be able, let me see here if I can get to a good map here. Sorry, let's see. Too many animations in this slideshow, sorry. Okay. I had made you guys big on my screen so I could see your faces or here you go. So, okay, it's a little hard to see here, but certain berms have X's over them. So can you guys see my cursor down here?
Yep.
Okay, so this one with an X, this is that old swamp, this is that old kind of flooded area. This one's going, right? This one we're keeping. You know that nice big pine tree that's right here?
Yep.
And there's that kind of old concrete that bituminous pavement area here that's on this little neck that will rip that asphalt up. This one we're going to keep. So that's going to be walkable straight across there, right? So this perimeter loop all the way around the outside to right there is intact. Darn, sorry, hit my mouse.
Is that the one with the bridge? I can't tell.
It's got a little funky old water control structure. We're going to put a series of little tiny boardwalks in there, like little kind of things you see in like a nature preserve in the middle of the wood, like little 10-foot, just small boardwalks to let any water that needs to get through it. So boom, boom, and then a little tiny like boardwalky thing over the stream there. So you're going to be able to walk right along there and dry. The intent there is a mowable, dry path. Excellent. And then right now, there's that thing that snakes along the creek. That path that's kind of overgrown and ticky right now. Well, there's gonna be a trail that basically goes along the creek. So there's a short loop right here where my cursor is. The short loop here that it's dry, that brings you right along the stream. And there's a connector here that doesn't exist now. So we're gonna make a new connector there. So small loop here where my hand's going. Big perimeter loop all the way around like this. And then of course you can come down to the end and to the point for a viewing vista like that. And then similarly over here on the west side, this little peninsula, this little turnaround here, you can come to the end here and look it out over that expanse. But the other ones we're going to remove. I got to take this dike out here and use that sand to fill this canal that runs along this whole west side, that deep rock lined canal. I'm going to put the dirt in there to stop water flowing around the site and let the water get back in the site. So that's the plan right now, Chris.
No, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that you could still, you do all this work to make it beautiful and we can still enjoy the beauty of that land, because it is even in its condition now, it's still beautiful to walk back there.
Oh, it is absolutely beautiful. And one more thing, bridge right here, little tiny bridge right at the outlet. When you come into the site, the parking area is right over here. Come in right here. This is going to be a small bridge that can carry a pickup truck for the landowner. The Mass Wildlife barn, you guys know, is up here. So Mass Wildlife needs to be able to get a vehicle around the site for maintenance if they need to. So that perimeter trail is going to be passable by a pickup truck on both sides. So very walkable and passable by a truck. And then this thing that comes across the middle here, and this thing walkable by a person and mowable.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments at this time?
Yes, my name's Chad Gilbert. I'm at 115 Howland Road, right across the street from the Cranberry Bogs, or the new wildlife management area. So, Mr. Hackman, what's the timeline on this from the time you have equipment, that arrives on site to the time that you guys pull the equipment out and now it's left to do its thing?
It's Chad. That's a great question. So let's see. Right now we're in permitting. Let me just give you the timeline as we're expecting, but we're in strange timelines that we used to be used to are timelines today. So, but my best guess, Chad, would be permitting will take us all the way through to early 2022. We're probably looking at 6 months of getting our permits. So by the springtime, by late winter, early spring, put the project out for bid for construction. It's a state-owned land, public bid process, competitive bid, and get our bids in maybe next May, June. Ideally start construction next July and August when it's really the driest out there, because that's the easiest time to move equipment around, when it's driest. And then based on the experience at the other sites, Chad, I think we're looking at probably a 6 month to 12 month total effort out there. So what I'd recommend is we come up with a neighborhood distribution list for me to give regular updates, because it is going to be, that is a long time. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's a gigantic site and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the best I can offer is just communication to let folks know what's happening. But I want to be upfront with you. I think it's probably going to be 6 months to a year of total time that it'll take.
Okay, that's fair enough. The other question I have for you is there's a lot of ATV, dirt bike, and off-road vehicle damage being caused there.
Yeah.
And it actually affects the surrounding neighborhoods. Cranberry Drive, that area's got ATVs and dirt bikes screaming up and down the road all hours of the day and night. Are there any plans for any kind of gates to go through there, or structures that will prevent these guys from, tearing up all the work and money that's going to be put into this piece of property to make it, into a beautiful area for everybody to enjoy, and not just to have them come tear it up?
Oh, Chad, this is just such a vexing problem for public lands in the region. Our actions are simple. Basically, we try to block the entrances. I mean, so anywhere that we see an entrance, we're going to drop a pile of logs, a rock, or something to make it difficult. And And that's the best we can do. And we're going to do as much of that as we can. But I got to preserve pickup truck access on either side, running north-south for the landowner. So if someone wants to sneak in through the woods on their ATV or their dirt bike, I can't block everywhere through the woods. I wish I could, Chad. It's just a vexing problem. We'll block everywhere that we see an entrance with a big pile to make it difficult. And if you want to tell me, if you want to meet out there and show me exactly where you think or any of the neighbors in this call think are the problem areas, let's do that, and we'll mark those on a map and we'll do something about it.
All right. I'll shoot you an email and we can meet
Awesome.
up and take a walk.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you for the question. You know, at the end of the day, if anything, this is, I think, going to foster a much better or stronger relationship with the local landowner and then the local homeowners, with the state entity and the folks that are running this site. So if that dialogue's opened, I can attest that, once they get complaints relative to the activity of ATVs or just concerning activity, the state oftentimes will go out and do their best to mitigate those. So if this can foster any, a good relationship between the local property owners and then the state to continue that partnership, that's going to be a win-win for everybody. So I'm glad about that. Hello?
I think you have a commissioner talking who's muted.
Oh.
Quick question. This is Rich Moradian from 77 Howland Road.
Hey, Rich.
My question was just about the parking area. Is it being expanded? Is it going to remain as is? Is it thought that it's going to bring in lots of traffic or whatever, that kind of thing?
That's Rich. So, we're going to resurface it and I think expand it just like by a couple spots, just because it's kind of knobbly right now, but not a wholesale expansion whatsoever. Just bump it out for a couple more spots, but it's still going to be essentially what it looks like, just with a better surface on it and gravel. Obviously not going to pave it. Keep it kind of informal like it is.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Was I muted when I was speaking before about the local partnership between the state and the local homeowners?
No, you were good. It was
good. Okay.
It was the person
whose
whose Zoom tag is Karen Sullivan that doesn't look like a Karen that was muted.
Oh, that's Charlie. That's Charlie Sullivan, the other commissioner, one of the other commissioners. So if you're muted, Charlie, *6 or however, unmute the little icon there. So
I'm good. I'm listening.
Does that
it all in?
Okay. Thank you. If does anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to just remind everybody, this doesn't end tonight. To the gentleman's point, permitting takes quite a while, not just on the local level. You're going to have state and you're going to have federal. And I would imagine on both of those instances that there would be a public comment should folks want to comment also on those. But I would really like to, be able to get Conservation Commission members out there. Let me ask you this. Would you be amenable, since it is state property and publicly owned and accessible, if we were to schedule a date and time certain or definitive, would it be wise to open those that inspection up to other homeowners or residents, or do you think, to your point, you've just agreed to meet, I think, with one or two other people to just go over their concerns directly? What's your take on that?
Oh, heck yeah. I think the more the merrier. Let's go have a site walk and
Okay.
bring a shovel and dig some holes. And there's nothing like showing you by digging a hole what the problem is to make it real. And
Right.
I mean, it's pretty overgrown, and whatever. I'd be delighted to meet
Okay.
folks and to do a big walk and learn more about the site from you and share what I've learned. And that sounds great.
That'd be great. So we've been at this for a little bit tonight. A lot of information to digest. Going to remind everybody the entire filing and set of plans are on our website. I'm wondering, you said you had that slideshow earlier, right? And so I'm wondering, is that available? Is that something that we could post on our website so that if people wanted to take a look at it, understanding that there'd be no audio to it?
Oh yeah,
but at
absolutely.
least, yeah.
Yeah. Can
Okay.
I?
And
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just ask one more question? This is Colette Hoffman
Yes.
from 10 Cranberry Drive. Mr.
Yes, sure.
Hoffman, when these heavy equipment are going to be coming in, how will they be accessing the site?
Yep, that's a great question, Colette. They're going to come through the, the Mass Wildlife, the barn with the gate that's
Right.
off of Helen Road.
Yeah.
And they have a big flat kind of paved area there. My expectation is that the equipment will be delivered there,
Okay.
brought in and staged there, likely refueled there because it's up out the wetlands, and probably parked there. So anything would come in there.
Okay. One more quick question.
Yeah.
Getting back to the dirt bikes and
Yeah.
they were constant cause of, like you said, I understand that your hands are pretty much tied, but what kind of penalties and fines should we be really looking at for these people? And what type of, have you seen other areas and what they might have implemented to kind of avoid this from happening?
Yeah, that's a great, it's just such a vexing problem, Colette. I mean, there are some sites that I visit. There's one in Wareham, one of my favorite old cranberry bugs project centers. I literally felt like I was going to run over one day by a pack of 12 high speed. I had to jump out of the way. Not what you want for a wildlife preserve,
Exactly.
And you all have it in your backyard. I just can imagine what a nuisance it is. So first of all, I'm sorry, it stinks. If anyone has a solution to it, I'm all ears. But as far as where we've done these projects, like the town of Plymouth is a good example. They have huge ATV problems there. We've done things like I just talked about, like blocked access points.
Right.
There's one place at that Eel River site that I threw up there where there's a bridge and they threw up some little removable, what are they called, bollards, balusters, so that you can't squeak through with a bike.
Right.
Definitely not 100% fix. You go back 1 year and those are busted, and there's a rut where some dirt biker went through. And in that town, that's town owned, so the town sends their environmental police around to try to stem it. Now this is state owned, so this would be state environmental police.
Right.
And it's just.
Can I just, I think that if you hit people in their pocketbooks, it's going to have a little bit more of a little bit more.
Yeah. Can I?
Ahead, maybe it could be postings.
Yeah. I think a good posting would help.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Can I interject? And I apologize, right? Because we're getting a little off of what our authority. No. What I'm going to say is you've been extremely forthcoming with your answers. And you've offered to speak with people. And what I would recommend is if folks have questions relative to that sort of stuff, because it is a problem, right? I am in the Sonnet side, closer to the state forest. We have members, and it's a serious problem there. About every 3 years, we have the state coming in to do trail restoration and mitigation because of the what I'm going to call illegal motorcycle activity, motorbike, ATV activity. Increased signage, you're right. Working, that's why I say working with the local landowners and the partners there. If they feel that they have a voice, they can reach out, contact somebody, and then they see real results, i.e., hey, they've created this new path. They contact you folks at the state level, and all of a sudden you come out and you try to dissuade future usage through whatever means you have. But it's really outside of the purview of the Conservation Commission. I'm not trying to eliminate this conversation. It needs to happen.
Yeah.
But I think to a certain degree, on an individual basis. But I think you've heard, and she makes a very good point. It's detrimental to the environment. Yeah. It bothers you when you're sitting out there on your back porch and you hear it. It scares the wildlife away. We've had an incident in town where a property owner came up against a dirt biker and they absolutely collided on a cranberry bog. cranberry grower trying to protect his crops and his property. Motorcyclists realizing, dirt bike realizing there's not all that many areas within the state to actively enjoy it legally. And so we have these constant. And so oftentimes in these cases, they're coming from local neighborhoods, right? These aren't groups where, you know, they may be coming down the pipeline too, right? So the pipeline hits the railroad tracks out of Fall River, out of New Bedford potentially. And so, but I think extra eyes and ears, great community partnership, and having that open dialogue and with direct results. It shouldn't be, and it can't be that complaints are made relative to that kind of activity and then nothing gets done, because that's where you lose that local partnership. So that's a great question. Yes, sir.
Could I add one more point on that? I'm sorry. I know you want to move away, but this is one final point on the ATV issue.
No, please.
I mean, there's the stick, you know, the enforcement stick, and we all know that doesn't work that great. There's also the carrot, which is, and this really best comes from a neighborhood group of people that care about the site. And so maybe Colette and Chad and Chris, maybe we could start like a distribution list and our friends of the Millbrook Bog and put up some signs that say, hey, you know, this site's about nature here. You know, I don't know. I like to try to appeal to people's best instincts. It's in addition to the enforcement.
Me too. You know, if you can describe it as being what it is, you know, a beautiful area that's sensitive, that this is what it does, and it helps protect this and it mitigates that, you know, that the other type of activities will be detrimental to that. And most oftentimes, I would say most reasonable people would see things like that and understand, but it happens, right? We can't, you know, we post speed limit signs everywhere, people still speed. It's just that I think what people want to feel is that at least when they have a concern or a complaint, that it's not falling on deaf ears, that when you say, hey, we're going to do increased signage, that it's there. Hey, that should, you know, if we need to, we'll go out, we'll meet with property owners to say, oh, shoot, it looks like they're sneaking in the back way over here. Well, maybe we can drop a couple logs or do something to that effect. So this is a very positive thing, in my opinion, for not only the local community, but for the town as a whole. Conservation Commission's been very, very fortunate. We put, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of acres in the last several years under conservation restriction and or just outright ownership through conservation. And part of it is to protect the natural resources. And you know, this is just another stone in that foundation. So I'm tickled pink that this is happening. So I am going to just politely ask that we close the public hearing for this evening. Try to schedule a site walk. Do you feel comfortable going out a month on this? Is that all right with you on your side, Alex?
Oh, whatever time frame you guys want, it's fine with us. We have, like I said, it's going to be another 6 to 9 months of us getting the rest of the permits. Whatever it's good for y'all is good for me and my shop.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we can try to schedule site walk, and if we're going to do it where we're going to be inviting some of the public, or at least letting them know, I want to give them an opportunity. Make sure you can get your team down there. We can get our side down there, and we can do that. So, I don't have the calendar. I do have a calendar in front of me. Just let me turn this on here. All right, so today is the 13th. Our next meeting is the 27th, and then after that, it would be looks like, well, it can't be the 11th. That's Columbus Day. So the 27th. How about the 18th?
18th. 18th bad for me. Sorry, I don't have much on my calendar, but that one I do. Sorry.
That's what happens.
I know the one thing on my calendar.
How about the first meeting in November is November 8th. What do you think about that?
November 8th. I'm going there right now. Got my calendar open. Yeah, that's great. And by then the ticks will be reduced.
Well, that was kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
Some of the foliage might be down, so it might make it a little bit easy to get around. For interested parties, we would all make sure that we just have Hunter Orange on.
Exactly.
So
you tell me when, you guys. I mean, if you want to spend 4 hours or 6 hours or 1 hour, it doesn't matter.
We'll let you know. I'm gonna have to send it out to find out. Send an email out to the membership to see what's going to work for them.
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So folks, I appreciate everybody who came to tonight's meeting. I hope everybody learned some stuff. And if you've got more questions, I think Alex has been very open about contacting him outside of a meeting. I would encourage that. If you don't feel comfortable with that and you want to just, maybe contact Conservation Commission with a question, that's fine too. You can do that at the town hall. So that being said, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for this Millbrook project to November 8th, 6 o'clock via Zoom.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Thank you. I got a motion second. There's no further discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan. Aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather. Aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello. Aye. Kevin Damaris. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Alex, great work with you and your team, and look forward to meeting you guys out there. We'll be in touch.
Likewise. And thanks to all the neighbors who came today. I'm looking forward to getting to know some of you out there. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome, sir. Have a good night. All right. So back to minutes and agendas. Conservation Commission. I believe we only have one more item. So discussion of 21 point of Pines request for certificate of compliance. Those that might recall have been on the board for a while. This was the old Ribeiro. I think it was Ribeiro. No. What was it? What's his name now, Chris? That used to own it. Charlie, you might remember. We had to issue an enforcement on him on that. It was Ribeiro, right?
Wasn't it?
Yeah, David. Exactly. So subsequent to that, the property has been sold. The order of conditions that were assigned to it, they're looking to close it out. Just to brief everybody, it was the notice of intent was filed in response to work being done within the buffer zone that didn't have a proper permit through us. And I went back and revisited the site, and I went back and revisited what our order of conditions were. It was very, very specific. Loam and seed or otherwise stabilize the site. That's been done. There was a pipe just sticking out of the ground. We didn't know what it was or where it went to. We asked that it was removed. It's been removed, and there was a pile of debris that was placed in the buffer zone across that little laneway, and that has all been removed and mitigated. So at this point in time, it's my belief that they are eligible for a complete certificate of compliance, and that is the request at this point in time. So I'll entertain, unless anybody has any questions, I would entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
Kevin, real quick. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes, sir.
The gentleman, did he complete all that work, or did the new buyers have to complete it because he walked away?
I believe there was a combination. So I believe there was a combination that some of it had been done, not to get in too much, but I think there was a situation, or it became a situation where the prior owner did not have the ability to do it any longer. So the new owner, I think at the end of the day, finished it out or what have you, but it's done now.
Thank you. So I'll make a motion that you're gonna.
All right, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and supported to issue a complete certificate of compliance. If there's no further discussion on the motion, hearing none. Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Chris Mather.
Aye.
Chris Mather, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we don't have any other business properly come before the board. I appreciate your patience, everybody, and your time. Again, Keith, be safe tonight, and I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and supported to adjourn. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call vote. Charlie Sullivan.
Aye.
Charlie Sullivan, aye. Chris Mather. Chris Mather, aye. Keith Mello.
Aye.
Keith Mello, aye. Kevin Damaris, aye. Thank you, folks, everyone. Be safe tonight. I'll talk to you later.
Take care, Kevin. Take care, guys.
Good night.
Hey, guys.